Hi everyone, unfortunately the Facebook Live settings have changed, so I'm just doing a recording for you and that we can share with people that are following us. So there are two themes that I want to talk about. The first one is really how do you get yourself to stay in the flow and optimize this whole concept of being in your flow. So a lot of people have got negative connotations about letting things flow, going with the flow because it's not driven enough, it's not focused enough. But the reality is when you're in your flow, it's that state of complete being in your zone, being able to do your best work and not getting either distracted or being put off by things that are not working the way you expect it to work. And what I think I mentioned to you last week that the mission for me for this year is how do we create balance and how do we make sure that we are able to do our best work. And if you think about it, we've got 24 hours in a day, and if we split those 24 hours up in the 3 8s, 8 of those will be, theoretically, will be sleep, because we actually need 8 hours sleep. Some of us don't, and some of us need a little bit more. But let's say 8 hours of that is sleep, and it's really letting your body recover. The next 8 hours will probably be work, and for you to be able to do the work to such an extent that it doesn't feel like work, that it feels absolutely like joy and you're loving every moment of it and you're completely in your flow, you're in your zone, you have to pay attention to the next 8 hours. And those other 8 hours are split in between the mornings and the evenings and the in-betweenies. Because most of us at the moment when we work from home, you've got quite a flexible day. So whether you take a half an hour here or 10 minutes here or 50 minutes here, that extra 8 hours, what I'm encouraging you to do is to be incredibly mindful of how you want to spend those 8 hours. So for example, if you think about what is it that really replenishes you, what fills your tank, your emotional tank, it will be things like walking in nature, going for a swim in the sea or in a dam, or being outside or going for a run. It will be something that is in nature and is probably physical, whether it's yoga, whether it's going to the gym, whether what it is. Secondly, it will be things that where you spend time with loved ones, and those loved ones can be family, but friends that really feeds your soul, gives you energy, doesn't take away from you, that's not toxic, and make sure you're not the toxic one. So really positive influences. So if your family is very critical of you or very negative or whatever, that's not how you want to spend that time. You want to really spend it with people that fills your tank, okay? And only those people. And then thirdly, it has to be something where you spend alone time. So it has to be something where you either journal, you've got a gratitude journal, you've got a prayer, you've got meditation, you've got just sitting and looking at the stars, but something where, and appreciating the quiet, but having alone time. Those are generally 3 things that you can do to replenish in those 8 hours. But the challenge is to be mindful of how you're going to do it, and not just saying, no, I'm doing stuff, I'm resting. Because what we end up doing, we end up being caught either on our phones, devices, and being on platforms that actually distracts and actually doesn't feed you, but takes away from you, takes your energy away and doesn't give you energy. Or we end up watching TV, and there's nothing wrong with watching Netflix and whatever, but be mindful of what you're watching and whether it is actually feeding you or not, and whether it is just not doing anything for you, so your tank doesn't get filled, it keeps being emptied. Okay, so that's the first theme, is how do you make sure that you're replenished so that you can be in your flow. The second part of what I want to talk about is about how do you make sure that you stay focused. And because we're in the beginning of the year and we're talking about casting vision last week, today what I want to talk about is if we are not clear on what our bigger objectives or goals are, strategic goals are for the year, whether you're an organization, whether you're an individual, whether you're a parent, whatever the case is, whatever role you fulfill. If we are not clear, we're going nowhere slowly or fast. So I want to suggest that you choose 3 try not to have more than 3, definitely 5 or less, okay? And even if it's one big goal, but 3 is a good number, because generally it will include various areas in your life. It will possibly include something that relates to your body and your health and your well-being. It will probably include something that relates to money and your work, and it will probably include something in terms of relationships and loved ones. So it's like it's almost that sense of, how do I make sure my head works and creates something? How do I make sure my body, head, hand and heart, and how do I make sure that I've got the right people in my life? So what would those 3 goals be? And write it down. We know the chances of actually achieving those goals are so much more if we actually write it down and we can track it. And during this year, I'll make sure that we track our goals and we make sure that we have, we're holding each other accountable to some extent to those things. So part of this exercise is trying to find somebody that you can have these conversations with. So finding somebody, either a coach, a counselor, a mentor, a friend that you can say, these are my 3 goals for the year, or these are my 5 goals for the year. This is what I want to achieve. And put it down on paper and then regularly check in. I hope this has been helpful, and I'll see you guys next week. Have a beautiful day.